Welcome back to RTC, ladies and gentlemen. This is yours, Craig, and welcome to the next episode of Fallout Factions. Today we're going to be talking about the Regulators. The Regulators are these, it was back in Fallout 3, they were relatively a new group in the Capital Wasteland. They appeared around in 2267 or so, and they took it upon themselves to hunt down troublemakers and do their best to keep a semi-balance of peace wherever they went. So, in the Capital Wasteland, they were led by a Sonora Cruz, I think her name is. Apologies if I butchered her name, but an operator out of the old Regulator HQ. Unlike the corrupt Regulators seen in the original Fallout game, which they actually ran a town and it was all about slavery and whatnot, which was unfortunate back then in California. But anyway, the Regulators of the Capital Wasteland are truly justed minded and seek to punish evil. It's really cool. The how you met the Regulators was quite cool in the system back then. When you got the Lawbringer perk, you'd be able to unlock their HQ, become a Regulator, and take fingers from the dead corpses of Raiders, Talon Company, specialized enemies as well, and you'd be able to get, let's see, you could get 5 to 10 bottle caps at a time, depending on how many fingers you got. You could have got thousands at one point. It also includes evil human. Like I said raiders and stuff like that. It includes evil humans and ghouls, and you can trade their fingers for the bottle caps that I just talked about there. Also, depending on your karma level, on the other hand, the Regulators will also attempt to claim a bounty on your head if you're very evil, and have accumulated a bad karma by committing serious crimes such as destroying Megaton or enslaving people in the Capital Wasteland, or simply by murdering people as well. But also, there's kind of a negative to that if you didn't want to go the regulator route, which I'm just going to talk about real quickly, which was Little Horn and Associates, which was kind of the contract killer perk. So, at the moment, actually, to bring out some known members of the Regulators here in the Capital Wasteland, we had Sonora Cruz, we had Lucas Sims, the Sheriff of Megaton, is a Regulator, by the way, if you didn't know that. And we had Lone Wanderer. A Lone Wanderer only if you had the Lawbringer perk, which was pretty much it. So the Regulators were, like I said, was a relatively new organization during our time in the Capital Wasteland. But what stops them from staying in the Wasteland? What doesn't stop them about how they could gain enough members to actually start different branches in different states? Because they could have went all the way up to Boston, hearing about the news about how evil the Institute was, or hearing about the Gunners or the different kind of raiders up there. And even then, like, they could have even heard of Nuka World at one point. I'm going to throw that in there because it is a possibility if you think about it. It's been 10 years after the 10 years after the Jefferson Memorial and of course Broken Steel DLC in the Fallout universe. Anyway, where the Regulators could actually move on foot. Boston's not that far away on foot. They could have set up different kind of bases or HQs that bring in more people, recruits, and supplies to help bring down anyone who was evil, really. And it was quite an interesting idea. It was a real shame we never saw them return again, because it would have been nice to have one of those mini factions. And with the mini faction, it is associated with a perk that you can get, the Lawbringer perk, as I said. But you kind of saw little versions of that inside of New Vegas as well, because you had the NCR Rangers, and then in the Capital Wasteland you have the Regulators. And back in California as well, you also had the different version of the Regulators, which I'll go through real quickly on their history. They were corrupt Regulators who said their town is full of free working people and so on and so forth, and their mayor was also a bad guy as well, and they just enslaved people and worked them to death. And you had some certain choices in there. I haven't played Fallout 1 in quite a long time, so I'm gonna have to replay that during the week just for my own sake and get back into the history of Fallout 1. And also, where, let's see, let's think about this. So it's just the Regulators here would make perfect sense in Boston, in the Massachusetts, because the Regulator is an actual term of official who maintains control and supervision over the public area interest. As a result, many armed groups, both vigilante and official, have been named Regulators throughout American history, of course, and one of the most noticeable groups in American history were the Regulators of the Carolinas around the time of the American Revolution. So the Regulators had been in history as well in America, and it would have made perfect sense alongside with the Minutemen. You would have the Regulators or something like that. The Minutemen fight the bigger threats while the Regulators supervise and protect smaller areas or communities. So kind of like your own version of the sheriff department, which would have been a really interesting thing since all the Boston police areas have been totally wiped off the map and there's no police left. There's only really the Institute, the Minutemen, the Brotherhood, and the Railroad. But what was lacking in Fallout 4 was the mini factions that we all loved. Like, I know we're getting Nuka World now, and technically you'd be able to take over as the Raider leader and be your own faction finally, but I didn't want to be a Raider leader. I wanted to make my own faction from scratch, of course. But that's not the point in this video. We're talking about the Regulators. So given how they're not that when you met them in Fallout 3, they weren't that well equipped. They had regulator dusters and cowboy hats and stuff like that. But I can imagine over 10 years of like taking up different jobs, hunting down bounties, and they really putting some thought about how many recruits they're gaining. They probably upgraded all their stuff and acted as our versions of the NCR Rangers in the Commonwealth, and like their forces could have grown and they could have moved up state by state, and even with the access of the what's it called, the old ferry boat in Point Lookout, they could even move down that way, down to Maryland and whatnot. At a certain point, the Point Lookout, I believe it's Maryland. Apologies if it's not. I'm not too great with my American geography, but the whole idea of this is the Regulators would have been a fantastic addition to Fallout 4 as a mini faction, as I said. They're lightweight, there's crap tons of raiders and special raiders, named raiders, and like having the Lawbringer perk would have been a fantastic addition back to Fallout. And the contract killer one as well. I might talk about the contract killer guys next time in a different video, but this pretty much sums up the Regulators as a mini faction, which we've been missing them really. If you think about it, there's no real big mini factions around the world. You can't join a raider group in base game. So we're getting an entire DLC designed to be the bad guy. So that's pretty unfortunate there. Some things I will admit this should have been in base game, I know, but as Regulators they should have been back. They're pretty mobile. Like they're always moving. They're just exactly like the NCR Rangers, except not well equipped and well trained. They're like local militia. As I said, the Regulators were very famous throughout the American Revolution, so it could be a qualified fact for Boston, the city of the Revolution. In America, it just doesn't have any Regulators. It just has the Minutemen, I know. I can suppose you can think of them as Regulators, but it doesn't have that whole cowboy feel to it that we had in Washington, the capital wasteland. So yeah, guys, that's pretty much it. It's a short and sweet video talking about the Regulators and how, my opinion on it, if they could actually be in Fallout 4, yes, they could. They could make They could make different groups that go to different states and start recruiting there and being their own independent division of the Regulators. I know, like, it sounds like I'm talking about like a whole bred army, but I'm actually talking about like local sheriff's department or something, or a local police force. Like you have Diamond City Security, and that's about it. Everywhere else is your own settlers dressed up in the best armor and weapons possible, and they still can't stop someone from being kidnapped or successfully defend the town. So what's bringing the Regulators, man? That was a big point there. I really love the Regulator perk, and it's unfortunate that it wasn't back in the game. It was an interesting one. Contract Killer was also another one as well, and hopefully soon enough we'll be able to get some modded stuff in, and that's pretty much it. My whole overall opinion of this, the Regulators should have been back. They make perfect sense. They're part of American history, even American Revolutionary history. They're not that far away from Boston. Given how wasteland trained they are, they're kind of like the NCR Rangers, just less trained, I guess. But depending on their skills in the capital wasteland, they could probably make it to Boston anyway, and become like a shining light in the darkness kind of thing. You don't have to go with the Brotherhood, you don't have to go with the Institute, you don't have to go with the Minutemen or the Railroad. You can just join the Regulators, hunt down raiders, super mutants, ghouls, evil people, And that was a big regret of the karma system as well, which is not working too well in this game. But that's enough about that at the moment, guys. I really hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll speak to you next time on RTC. See you guys. Have a good one.